Hola, mis amores. It's your Tía Lupita here. Pour yourself some cafecito. Get comfortable, because today I need to tell you about my comadre Mercedes Vega. And let me warn you, this story is going to break your heart before it puts it back together. You know how I always say, la familia es todo, pero el respeto no es negociable? Family is everything, but respect is not negotiable. Well, Mercedes learned that lesson in the most painful way possible. Today I'm going to tell you about Mercedes, a Mexican woman who came from Jalisco with nothing but dreams. But mías, even if your family is from Puerto Rico, or El Salvador, or Cuba, you're going to see yourself in this story. Because what Mercedes went through, that's not just Mexican. That's Latino. That's immigrant. That's all of us. Her own daughter, her only daughter, the child she sacrificed everything for, turned her back on her, rejected her culture, rejected her language, rejected her. And then, mijas y mijos, that daughter expected to inherit millions. But here's the thing about my comadre Mercedes. She was nobody's fool. And what she did with her will? Ay, Dios mío. It's the kind of justice that makes you want to stand up and applaud. Let me tell you how it all went down. So I get a call one morning from my comadre's grandson, Miguel, and I can hear in his voice that something terrible has happened. Tía Lupita, he says, his voice breaking. Abuela Mercedes passed away last night. I had to sit down, mijas. Even though Mercedes was 78, even though I knew her health was failing, hearing those words felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Ay, mijo, I said. I'm so sorry. How are you holding up? I'm okay, he said. But Tia, there's going to be trouble. The will reading is next week. And my mother, she has no idea what's coming. And that's when Miguel told me everything. The whole story of Mercedes Vega and the daughter who broke her heart. Let me start from the beginning, the way Miguel told it to me. Mercedes Vega came to Los Angeles from a small town in Jalisco in 1972. She was 25 years old, spoke almost no English, and had exactly $43 in her pocket. Her husband, Rodrigo, had come first, working construction, saving every penny to bring her over. They lived in a tiny apartment in Boyle Heights, sharing a bathroom with 3 other families. Mercedes got her first job cleaning houses. She'd wake up at 4 a.m., take 3 buses to get to the rich neighborhoods in Pasadena, clean houses until 6 p.m., then take 3 buses back home. Her hands were raw from bleach and scrubbing. Her back ached constantly, but every week she put money aside for a better apartment, for the baby she was carrying, for the future. That baby was Patricia, born in 1973, a beautiful little girl with her mother's dark eyes and her father's smile. Mercedes would tell me years later, Lupita, when I held Patricia for the first time, I made a promise. My daughter would never have to clean toilets. My daughter would be educated. My daughter would be somebody. She had no idea how much that promise would cost her. For 15 years, Mercedes cleaned houses, 5 days a week, sometimes 6. While Rodrigo worked construction, Mercedes scrubbed floors and toilets and bathtubs for rich white ladies who barely looked at her. But Mercedes was smart, mijas, really smart. She noticed something. Every few years, the ladies she cleaned for would sell their houses for twice what they'd paid. The neighborhoods were changing. Property values were going up. In 1987, a house on her street in Boyle Heights went up for sale, $42,000. It needed work, but it was solid. Mercedes and Rodrigo scraped together every penny they had, borrowed from family, worked extra shifts, and they bought that house. Not to live in, to rent out. If rich people can make money from property, so can we, Mercedes told Rodrigo. They kept living in their small apartment, kept working their jobs, but now they had rental income, and Mercedes kept her eyes open. Over the next 20 years, Mercedes bought 3 more properties, small houses, duplexes, always in Boyle Heights or East LA. Always in neighborhoods she knew were going to change. She learned English by watching novelas and reading the Los Angeles Times. She learned about property taxes and mortgages and zoning laws. She made friends with a Mexican accountant, a Mexican lawyer, a Mexican real estate agent. She built an empire, mijas, quietly, carefully, one property at a time. By 2010, Mercedes owned 4 properties in East LA, and the neighborhood had gentrified. Those $40,000 houses, now worth $600,000, $700,000 each. Mercedes Vega, who came to this country with $43, was worth almost $3 million. And through all of this, she kept cleaning houses, because that's who Mercedes was. Humble, hardworking, never forgot where she came from. But her daughter, Patricia? That's a different story. Patricia grew up watching her mother leave before dawn and come home exhausted at night, watching her father come home covered in concrete dust and paint. And Patricia was ashamed. At school, when kids asked what her parents did, she'd say, "My dad is in construction management. My mom is in property services." She refused to speak Spanish. When Mercedes would speak to her in Spanish at home, Patricia would answer in English. "Mom, we're in America. Speak English." Mercedes would look hurt, but she'd switch to English. Her broken, accented English that Patricia would correct impatiently. "It's not I go to store. It's I'm going to the store." "God, Mom." Mercedes paid for Patricia's education. Private Catholic school, then UCLA. Paid every penny of that $40,000 tuition, while still cleaning houses. Patricia graduated with a business degree in 1995. At graduation, she hugged her mother and said, "Thank you, Mama. I'm going to make you so proud." Mercedes cried happy tears that day. She had no idea what was coming. After college, Patricia got a job at a marketing firm. She was good at it. Smart, ambitious, polished. She started going by Trish. "Patricia sounds too ethnic," she told her mother. "Trish is more professional." She met a man named David Morrison, white, from Connecticut, worked in finance. Nice enough guy, mijas, but you could tell he saw Patricia as exotic, a trophy. They got married in 1998. Big wedding at a hotel in Beverly Hills. Mercedes paid for half of it, $35,000. At the wedding, David's parents asked Mercedes, "So what do you do?" Before Mercedes could answer, Patricia cut in. "My mother is a property owner. She has a portfolio in East Los Angeles." Not a lie, but not the truth either. Mercedes said nothing, but I saw her face in the wedding photos. She looked sad. After the wedding, Patricia started pulling away. The visits became less frequent. Once a month became once every few months. Phone calls became texts. Patricia and David moved to Manhattan Beach. A nice house, white picket fence, 2 kids. The perfect American life. Mercedes would call speaking Spanish. "Mija, when can I see my grandchildren?" "Mom, we're really busy. The kids have activities. Maybe next month." Next month would come and go. When Mercedes would visit, Patricia would speak to her in English. Only English. Even though Mercedes's English was still heavily accented, still imperfect. In front of David's family, Patricia would say things like, "My mother doesn't really understand American culture. She's very traditional." As if being Mexican was something to apologize for. Mercedes would smile and nod and say nothing. But I saw her after those visits, mijas. She'd come to my house and cry, "Lupita, I don't understand. I gave her everything. Education, opportunities. Why is she ashamed of me?" What could I say? I held my comadre and let her cry. In 2015, Rodrigo died. Heart attack just like that. 68 years old. Mercedes was devastated. They'd been married 43 years. At the funeral, Patricia showed up in black designer clothes, dark sunglasses. She stood by the casket for 10 minutes, then left. "I have to get back to the kids," she said. David couldn't get the whole day off. She didn't stay for the reception, didn't help Mercedes with anything, just left. After that, Mercedes aged quickly. The grief, the loneliness, it wore her down. In 2017, she had a stroke. Not severe, but enough that she couldn't live alone anymore. Miguel, her grandson, Patricia's oldest son, immediately said, "Abuela, you're coming to live with me." Miguel was 22 then, working as a paralegal, living in a small apartment in Monterey Park. Not much space, not much money, but he made room. Patricia's response? Well, I can't take her. We don't have space, and David's parents visit all the time. Plus, the kids need their rooms. The house in Manhattan Beach had 5 bedrooms. For 3 years, Miguel took care of his abuela. He'd get up early, make her breakfast, help her with her medications, then go to work. After work, he'd come home and make dinner, help her shower, read to her. Every Sunday, without fail, he took her to misa at La Iglesia de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe in East LA, the same church where she'd prayed for 40 years. He helped her manage her properties, learned about her business, started helping with the paperwork. And here's something Miguel told me that made me love that boy even more. He used his own money, $18,000 from his savings, to pay for his abuela's medical bills that Medicare didn't cover. $18,000, mijas, while working a paralegal salary. Meanwhile, Patricia contributed exactly $0 to her mother's care. 0. But she had opinions. Oh, she had plenty of opinions. In 2020, Mercedes had another stroke. This one was worse. She needed more care than Miguel could provide while working full-time. Miguel found a good nursing home in Montebello. Clean, Latino staff who spoke Spanish, activities, good food. It cost $4,000 a month. Mercedes' rental income covered it, but barely. Miguel visited every Sunday after church. He'd bring her menudo, her favorite novelas on DVD, pictures of the family. They'd sit together for hours, talking in Spanish, laughing, crying sometimes. Patricia visited exactly 3 times in 2 years. 3 times, mijas. Each visit lasted less than 30 minutes. She'd come in, speak to Mercedes in English, even though the stroke had made it harder for Mercedes to understand English. She'd look at her watch, say she had to get back. The nursing home staff told Miguel that Mercedes would cry after Patricia's visits. She'd sit by the window and cry and say, "Where did I go wrong? Why doesn't my daughter love me?" Miguel would hold his abuela's hand and say, "She loves you, abuela. She's just busy." But he knew the truth. We all knew the truth. Patricia was ashamed of her mother, ashamed of where she came from, ashamed of the Mexican cleaning lady who'd given her everything. On March 15th, 2023, Mercedes Vega died in her sleep. She was 78 years old. Miguel was there. He'd gotten a call from the nursing home that Mercedes had taken a turn, and he'd rushed over. He held her hand as she took her last breath. Patricia was at a spa retreat in Ojai. She didn't come until the next day. At the funeral, Patricia wore black Prada, crying behind designer sunglasses. She gave a eulogy about a strong immigrant woman who worked hard and loved her family. The words were pretty, mijas, but they rang hollow because everyone there knew the truth. Everyone had watched Patricia reject her mother for years. After the funeral, Patricia pulled Miguel aside. "So when's the will reading? I assume mother left everything to me. I'm the daughter, after all. You understand, right? You'll be taken care of, don't worry. Maybe 50,000 or something?" Miguel just looked at her. "The reading is next week," he said, "at Don Roberto Garcia's office." "Wait, who's that? I thought we'd use my lawyer in Beverly Hills." Abuela used Don Roberto for 40 years. He handled all her properties. Patricia wrinkled her nose. "Is he even a real lawyer? Does he speak English?" Miguel walked away before he said something he'd regret. But he knew what was coming. And mijas, what happened at that will reading? It's the kind of justice that makes you believe in divine intervention. Get yourself more cafecito, because what happens next is going to make you want to stand up and cheer. The week between the funeral and the will reading was tense, mijas. Patricia kept calling Miguel, asking questions. "Do you know how much mother was worth? I'm trying to plan. I think we should sell all the properties quickly, before the market changes. David knows some excellent real estate investors. Do you know if she had life insurance? There should be life insurance. Did she have any debts? God, I hope she didn't let those properties fall apart. We'll probably have to put money into fixing them up. Always we, always assuming. Miguel didn't tell her anything. He'd just say, "You'll find out at the reading, Tia. Don't call me Tia. It's Aunt Patricia, or just Patricia." Even now, after her mother's death, she couldn't accept who she was. The will reading was scheduled for 10 a.m. on March 22nd at Don Roberto Garcia's office in East LA. Don Roberto was old school, mijas. 75 years old, practicing law for 50 years, all in the Latino community. He'd helped Mercedes with every property purchase, every contract, every legal document. His office was in a small building on Cesar Chavez Avenue. Not fancy, but respectable. Pictures of his family on the walls, his law degree from Loyola, a statue of La Virgen de Guadalupe on his desk. Miguel arrived early. He wore a simple black suit, looked nervous. Patricia arrived exactly on time with her husband, David. She wore a cream-colored designer suit, heels that clicked on the tile floor, sunglasses even though she was indoors. She looked around Don Roberto's office with barely concealed disdain. "This is quaint," she said. Don Roberto greeted them in English, though you could hear his accent. "Mrs. Morrison, Mr. Morrison, Miguel, please sit down. I'm very sorry for your loss. Mrs. Vega was a remarkable woman." "Yes, thank you," Patricia said impatiently. "Can we get started? We have lunch reservations at 12:30. Don Roberto's expression didn't change, but I know him, mijas. That comment told him everything he needed to know about Patricia. He opened a folder on his desk. "Before we begin, I need to tell you that Mrs. Vega was very specific about her wishes. She spent considerable time on this will. She was of completely sound mind when she drafted it, and I had 2 witnesses present when she signed it. This will is ironclad." "Of course," Patricia said. "Mother was always very organized. Now, about the properties." "Let me read the will," Don Roberto said firmly. He put on his reading glasses and began. "I, Mercedes Vega, being of sound mind and body, do declare this to be my last will and testament. First, to the distribution of my estate. At the time of this writing, my estate consists of 4 properties in East Los Angeles, with a combined assessed value of $2,800,000, along with rental income accounts and personal savings totaling approximately $73,000. To my daughter, Patricia Vega Morrison, I leave the sum of $1. The room went silent. Patricia's head snapped up. "What?" Don Roberto continued reading. "To my daughter, Patricia, I also leave this letter to be read aloud at this meeting. The remainder of my entire estate, including all properties, all accounts, all personal possessions, and all rental income, I leave to my grandson, Miguel Antonio Vega Morrison." Patricia shot to her feet. "That's impossible. There's been a mistake." "There is no mistake, Mrs. Morrison," Don Roberto said calmly. "Please sit down. Your mother left you a letter. Would you like me to read it, or would you prefer to read it yourself?" ... This is insane. My mother would never. She was confused. She'd had strokes. This isn't legal. "Mrs. Morrison, your mother drafted this will 5 years ago, well before her first stroke. She updated it twice, most recently 6 months before she died. Each time, she was evaluated by a doctor who certified her mental competence. I have all the documentation." David put his hand on Patricia's arm. "Honey, let's hear the letter. There must be an explanation." Patricia sat down, her face white with shock. Don Roberto pulled out a handwritten letter, Mercedes's shaky but clear handwriting. He began to read. "My dear Patricia, if you are hearing this letter, it means I have died, and you are learning that I have not left you my properties or my money. I imagine you are shocked, perhaps angry, probably both. I want you to understand why I made this decision. Patricia, I gave you everything I could give. I worked 3 jobs to send you to private school. I cleaned toilets so you could go to UCLA. I paid for your wedding, helped you buy your first car, gave you money for your house down payment. In total, over your lifetime, I gave you $127,000. I did this happily. You are my daughter. I love you. But Patricia, you broke my heart. You stopped speaking Spanish to me. You changed your name to something less ethnic. You were ashamed to tell people I cleaned houses. You visited me 3 times in 2 years while I was in the nursing home. 3 times, mija. 3 times in 2 years. Patricia's hands were shaking. Tears started running down her face, smearing her makeup. Don Roberto continued. When I had my first stroke, your son Miguel took me into his small apartment. He had no money, no space, but he made room. He cared for me for 3 years. He took me to misa every Sunday. He spoke to me in Spanish. He made me feel like I mattered. When I had to move to the nursing home, Miguel visited every Sunday. Every single Sunday for 2 years. He brought me menudo. He brought me pictures. He held my hand and told me stories. He also did something else, Patricia, something you never knew about. Miguel used $18,000 from his own savings to pay for my medical bills. $18,000 from a paralegal salary. He never told me. I found out from the billing office. When I asked him, he said, "Abuela, you're my family. This is what family does." Patricia, you never asked if I needed money. You never offered to help. You assumed Miguel and I would handle it while you lived in your big house in Manhattan Beach. So yes, I am leaving everything to Miguel. Not to punish you, mija, but because he loved me for who I was. He never asked me to change. He never asked me to be less Mexican, less immigrant, less me. He accepted me, and that love, that respect, is worth more than all the properties in Los Angeles. The letter continued. I hope someday you understand that being Mexican is not something to be ashamed of. That speaking Spanish is not a weakness. That the woman who cleaned toilets to give you a better life deserved your respect, not your embarrassment. I forgive you, Patricia. I'm your mother, and I will always love you. But I will not reward you for rejecting who I am. My properties will go to Miguel. He will use them wisely. I have instructed him to use some of the rental income to help other immigrant families. To help people like I was when I arrived here with $43 and a dream. That is my legacy, mija. Not the money, the work, the sacrifice, the love. I pray you understand someday. With love always, your mother, Mercedes. Don Roberto folded the letter and set it down. The office was silent except for Patricia's crying. Finally, Patricia spoke, her voice breaking. This isn't fair. I'm her daughter. I have rights. You do have rights, Don Roberto said. You have the right to contest the will. But I must tell you, Mrs. Morrison, you will lose. Your mother documented everything. I have medical evaluations proving her competence. I have statements from the nursing home staff about your visits, or lack thereof. I have Miguel's financial records showing what he spent on her care. I have witness statements from church members, from neighbors, from friends. He pulled out a thick folder. Your mother was thorough, Mrs. Morrison. She knew you might contest this. She prepared for it. Patricia looked at the folder like it was a snake. I want to see everything. I want copies of all of that. Of course, I'll have my assistant make copies. But Mrs. Morrison, I strongly advise you to accept this will. Fighting it will cost you tens of thousands in legal fees, and you will not win. David finally spoke up. Patricia, maybe we should think about this. Think about what? That my own mother gave away millions of dollars to my son instead of to me? That she wrote me this cruel letter calling me a bad daughter? The letter doesn't call you a bad daughter, Miguel said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken. It says you're loved. It says you're forgiven. But Abuela wanted her legacy to go to someone who respected where she came from. Don't you dare lecture me. Patricia turned on him. You manipulated her. You took advantage of a confused old woman. I took care of her, Miguel said, his voice still calm but firm. Where were you, Tia Patricia? Where were you every Sunday when I was taking her to church? Where were you when she needed help getting dressed? Where were you when she cried because her daughter wouldn't speak Spanish to her? Patricia stood up, grabbing her purse. This isn't over. David, we're leaving. Mrs. Morrison, Don Roberto called after her, you still need to sign some papers acknowledging receipt of the will. Send them to my lawyer, a real lawyer. She stormed out, David following behind her, looking uncomfortable. After they left, Miguel put his head in his hands. Don Roberto, she's going to make my life hell. Probably, Don Roberto agreed. Your tia is very angry. But Miguel, your abuela was right about you. You have a good heart. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for being a good grandson. I don't even want the money, Miguel said. I just wanted abuela to be happy. I know, mijo, but your abuela wanted you to have this. She had plans for you, instructions. He pulled out another envelope. This is for you, from your abuela. She wrote it 3 months before she died. Miguel took the letter with shaking hands. I'm not going to tell you everything that letter said, mijas. That's personal, between a grandson and his abuela. But Miguel told me the important parts later. Mercedes had specific instructions for how she wanted her properties used. She wanted Miguel to keep them, to use the rental income to help immigrant families get their start in America. She wanted him to create a fund for legal help for people dealing with immigration issues. She wanted her legacy to be more than just money. She wanted it to be hope. For the next 2 weeks, Patricia's lawyer called Don Roberto repeatedly. They wanted to challenge the will. They wanted medical records. They wanted to depose everyone who knew Mercedes. Don Roberto sent them everything they requested. Every document, every evaluation, every witness statement. 2 weeks later, Patricia's lawyer called to say they were dropping the challenge. There's no case, he told Patricia. Your mother was completely competent. The will is valid. I'm sorry, but fighting this would cost you a fortune and you'd lose. Patricia didn't take it well. She started calling family members, calling friends, telling anyone who would listen that Miguel had manipulated Mercedes, that he'd stolen her inheritance. He took advantage of a sick old woman. He isolated her from me. He poisoned her against me. But here's the thing, mijas. The community knew the truth. At the next Sunday misa at la iglesia de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, people went out of their way to hug Miguel, to tell him how proud Mercedes would be. Father Tomás, who'd known Mercedes for 40 years, even mentioned it in his homily. There's been talk in our community, he said from the pulpit. Talk about inheritance and family. I want to remind everyone of something. Mercedes Vega was a faithful member of this church for 4 decades. She sat in the same pew every Sunday. And for the last 3 years of her life, her grandson Miguel sat beside her. Every Sunday, rain or shine. While others in her family, he paused meaningfully, while others were too busy. People turned to look at Miguel and nodded approvingly. After Mass, an old woman named Señora Ruiz came up to Miguel. Your abuela did the right thing, mijo. I saw you with her every week. I saw the love. That's what matters. Miguel couldn't stop crying. Meanwhile, Patricia's life was falling apart in ways she never expected. The properties Mercedes left to Miguel, they were in Boyle Heights and East LA. Patricia had assumed they were in bad neighborhoods, not worth much. She hadn't been paying attention to the gentrification. Those 4 properties were now worth $2.8 million, and the rental income, $12,000 a month. When David saw the actual numbers, he was furious. Patricia, your mother left Miguel almost $3 million in real estate, and you didn't even know how much she was worth? She was a cleaning lady. How was I supposed to know? She stopped cleaning houses 15 years ago. She was a property owner. How did you not know this? Their fights got worse. David started making comments about how if Patricia had just maintained a relationship with her mother, visited her, they'd be the ones with those properties. You were too embarrassed to visit your own mother, and it cost us millions, he said one night. That hurt Patricia more than anything. 3 months after the will reading, Patricia's life was unraveling. Her marriage was strained. David resented her constantly now. Her friends were asking uncomfortable questions about why her mother left her nothing. And then, something happened that changed everything. Miguel did something Patricia never expected. He invited her to coffee. Dear Patricia, I know this has been hard. I know you're angry, but I need to show you something. Something abuela left for you that's not in the will. Patricia almost didn't go, but curiosity got the better of her. What Miguel showed her? Mayas, it broke her heart and healed it at the same time. And it's where the real story begins. They met at a small cafe in Montebello, not far from the nursing home where Mercedes had spent her last 2 years. Patricia arrived late, on purpose. She wore sunglasses indoors, her armor against the world. Miguel was already there, waiting at a corner table. In front of him was a large cardboard box. "What's this?" Patricia asked, sitting down without ordering anything. "It's from abuela. She asked me to give this to you after the will reading, after you'd had time to process everything." Patricia stared at the box like it might explode. "Is this some kind of joke? Did she leave me her old cleaning supplies?" The bitterness in her voice made Miguel flinch. "Just open it, Tia, please." Patricia pulled the box toward her and opened it. Inside were journals, dozens of them, small notebooks with worn covers, filled with Mercedes handwriting. "What is this?" Abuela kept journals. For 50 years, she wrote in them almost every day. "These are all about you." Patricia's hands trembled as she pulled out the first journal. The date on the first page, April 1973. Patricia was born today. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. She has my eyes. I held her and promised her she would have a better life than me. I will work until my hands bleed to give her everything. Patricia's breath caught. Miguel spoke softly. "She documented everything, Dia. Every sacrifice, every moment. I think she wanted you to understand what your life cost her. Not in a mean way. She just wanted you to know." Patricia started reading, and mijas, she couldn't stop. There were entries about working 3 jobs to pay for Patricia's quinceañera, about taking extra house cleaning shifts to afford Patricia's private school uniform, about learning English by watching Sesame Street so she could help Patricia with homework. One entry from 1989 read, "Patricia told me today she's embarrassed that I clean houses. She asked me not to tell her friends. It hurt, but I understand. She wants to fit in. She wants to belong. That's why I work so hard, so she can have what I didn't have. But sometimes I wish she knew that there's no shame in honest work." Patricia put her hand over her mouth. Another entry from 1993. "Patricia corrected my English in front of her friends today. It's the store, Mom, the." Her friends laughed. Patricia laughed too. I smiled and said nothing. But later I cried in the bathroom. I'm trying so hard to learn, but my tongue doesn't work the same way anymore. The words don't come out right. I wish she would be patient with me the way I was patient with her when she was learning to talk. Patricia started crying, tears falling onto the pages. Miguel pushed a napkin across the table but said nothing. There was an entry from Patricia's wedding day in 1998. "Patricia looked so beautiful today, like a princess. I'm so proud of her. I paid $35,000 for half the wedding. It took me 5 years to save it, but it was worth it to see her happy." David's parents asked what I do. Patricia said I'm in property services. I know she's ashamed that I was a cleaning lady. It hurts, but I love her. Maybe someday she'll understand that the woman who cleaned toilets is the reason she could have this beautiful wedding. Patricia was sobbing now, her shoulders shaking. "Why are you showing me this?" she managed to say. "Because abuela wanted you to know the truth, not just the facts, the feelings. She wanted you to understand what you meant to her. Even when you hurt her, she loved you." Miguel pulled out another journal, this one more recent. He opened it to a specific page. "This is from 6 months before she died, after you'd visited her at the nursing home for the 3rd time." He handed it to Patricia. She read through blurry eyes. "Patricia came to see me today. She stayed 20 minutes. She spoke to me in English, even though she knows it's hard for me to understand now, after the stroke. She kept checking her phone. When she left, I asked her if she could stay a little longer. She said she had to get back to the kids. I know she's busy. I know she has a life, but I wish she knew that I'm dying." The doctors told Miguel. They said maybe a year, maybe less. I wish Patricia knew that soon she won't have a mother to visit. And I wonder if she'll regret all the time she didn't come. Patricia let out a sound like a wounded animal. She knew, Patricia whispered. She knew she was dying, and I only visited 3 times. She knew, Miguel confirmed. But she never told you because she didn't want to guilt you into visiting. She wanted you to want to see her. Patricia put her head down on the table and cried, really cried, the kind of crying that comes from the soul. Miguel let her cry. He ordered her water, pushed it toward her, and waited. Finally, after what felt like an hour but was probably 10 minutes, Patricia lifted her head. I can't believe what I did. I can't believe I was so ashamed of her, of where I came from, of who she was. She wasn't ashamed of you, Miguel said. She was proud of you. Even when you hurt her, she bragged about you to her friends. My daughter is a marketing executive. My daughter lives in Manhattan Beach. My daughter married well. She never stopped loving you, Tia. Then why did she leave me nothing? Patricia's voice cracked. Why did she punish me? Miguel shook his head. She didn't punish you, Tia. She gave me the properties because I was going to use them the way she wanted. She had plans, instructions. But you, she gave you something more valuable. He pulled out one more journal, the last one Mercedes had written in. This is from 2 weeks before she died. She was very weak, could barely write, but she wrote this for you. Patricia took it with shaking hands and read. My dear Patricia, if Miguel is showing you these journals, it means I'm gone, and it means you're hurting. I'm sorry for that pain, mija, but I want you to understand something. I didn't leave you the properties to teach you a lesson. I left them to Miguel because he will use them to help others the way I wanted. But you, Patricia, I'm giving you something else. I'm giving you the truth about what your life cost me, the truth about how much I loved you, the truth about who you are and where you come from. You spent so many years running from being Mexican, from being the daughter of a cleaning lady, from speaking Spanish, from your culture and mija. It breaks my heart because you were running from the best parts of yourself. The strength that got you through UCLA, that's Mexican strength. The work ethic that made you successful, that's what I taught you, watching me work 3 jobs. The determination that let you build a career, that came from watching your father and me build something from nothing. You are Mexican, Patricia. Not because you speak Spanish or eat tamales or listen to Vicente Fernandez. You're Mexican because it's in your blood, in your bones, in the way you love fiercely and work hard and never give up. I don't want the properties, mija. I want you. I want the daughter who used to help me make tortillas, the girl who would sing Mexican songs with me, the Patricia who wasn't ashamed of where she came from. Money comes and goes, but family, culture, knowing who you are, that's forever. I'm leaving you these journals because they're worth more than any property. They're your history. They're the story of how much you were loved. They're proof that you come from strong people, brave people, people who crossed borders and worked impossible jobs and sacrificed everything for their children. That's your inheritance, mija. Not the money, the story. Use it well. Be proud of it. And maybe someday, teach it to your children. Teach them that their bisabuela came to this country with $43 and built an empire. Teach them that strength runs in their veins. Teach them to be proud of being Mexican. That's all I ever wanted. Not for you to be perfect, just for you to be proud. I love you forever. Tu mamá. Patricia closed the journal and just sat there, tears streaming down her face. Miguel reached into the box and pulled out one more thing, a small photo album. There's something else, Tia. Abuela, hazme que soy yo ti. It was photos, hundreds of them. Mercedes with baby Patricia. Mercedes and Rodrigo at Patricia's first communion. Mercedes at Patricia's high school graduation, beaming with pride. Mercedes at Patricia's wedding, looking beautiful in her mother of the bride dress. And then the more recent photos, the ones that hurt. Photos Miguel had taken over the last 3 years. Him and Mercedes at church, at the nursing home, making tamales together. Mercedes in her wheelchair, smiling at the camera, Miguel's arm around her shoulders. In every photo, Mercedes looked happy, loved, at peace. Patricia stared at these photos for a long time. I missed everything, she finally said. I was so busy running from who she was that I missed getting to know who she really was. She was amazing, Tia. She spoke 3 languages, Spanish, English, and Nahuatl from her grandmother. She knew the history of every neighborhood in East LA. She could tell you which streets used to be dirt roads, which buildings used to be what. She had stories about the Zoot Suit riots, about the Chicano moratorium, about how the freeways destroyed Boyle Heights neighborhoods. Patricia looked up at him in shock. She never told me any of that. Because you never asked. You never spoke Spanish with her. You never spent time with her. You didn't want to hear it. Patricia flinched, but it was true. Miguel continued, his voice gentle but firm. Abuela was a historian, a businesswoman, a survivor. She was so much more than just a cleaning lady. But you never saw it because you were too busy being embarrassed. What do I do now? Patricia asked, her voice small. How do I fix this? She's gone. I can't apologize to her. I can't tell her I'm sorry. I can't take it back. Miguel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, you can't fix it with her, but you can fix it with yourself and with your kids. Patricia looked confused. Your kids, Tia? My cousins. Do they speak Spanish? Patricia shook her head. Do they know about Abuela Mercedes? About where their family comes from? About what she survived to get here? Patricia shook her head again, tears falling. Then that's how you honor her, Miguel said. You teach them. You tell them the story. You stop being ashamed and start being proud. You make sure they know that their bisabuela was a warrior, not just a cleaning lady. Patricia took the box of journals home that day. For the next 2 weeks, she read every single one, every entry, every story, every sacrifice, and something in her broke open. She called Miguel on a Saturday morning. Miguel, can you teach me Spanish? Real Spanish, not the little bit I remember. I want to read these journals in the language Abuela wrote them in. Miguel was silent for a moment, then his voice cracked. She would have loved that, Tia. And Miguel, can we go to church tomorrow? To la iglesia de Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe? I want to sit in Abuela's pew. I'll pick you up at 9.